Okay, so I'm just wondering, what are the best ways that we can be responding to people that might be thinking that, the misbehaviour of a child or labelling a child as naughty, and how we can sort of respond and work with that, and to really rewrite that narrative for our children that might be experiencing those difficulties and behaviours and things. And
So behaviour is communication.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to understand why the child is behaving that way, what need is it meeting for them, and from there we can figure out where to go next. Everything we do should be protecting a child's mana, so there shouldn't be a reputation building for a child that they are naughty or misbehave or have an anger management issue, which is something that's quite a trendy thing to say at the moment. Why is the child behaving this way, and how can we teach them the skills that they need to be able to be successful in a classroom environment? And that needs to be done without any judgment around things. It's very easy for people who don't understand ADHD to say it's parenting, it's diet, it's screen time, and it's not any of those things usually. It's usually something that needs quite a bit of thinking about and a bit of reteaching.
So it's probably, as Emma said, it's about unpacking what it is that need is communicating to you. But going back to what we were talking about earlier, that's where if you're collecting data, whether it be, what's happening in the playground, what's happening in the classroom, you're noticing things, you're just making a note of them, you can start to then see where perhaps there are patterns, particular times, maybe particular behaviours that crop up time and time again, and then you've got an opportunity to sit down and look at those. It might be with another teacher, it might be with your learning support coordinator, or your SENCO, and look at them and say, okay, what's happening for that child here? What can we do to disrupt that pattern? Do we need to teach them another skill? Do we need to introduce something that's going to support a sensory need? Are the blocks of time too long? Are they sitting on the mat for too long? Do we need to give them a break? So it's not just about what's happening for the child, it's actually thinking about what's happening in the context of that environment at the time as well. It's always interacting with their environment.
All factors.
Yep. And it might be other students, it might be, every time, George goes along and he chooses to sit next to Fred, well, there's always a problem then. What is it that's creating that? So, it might have nothing to do with ADHD, but it might actually be, something to do with the diagnosis as well. So, yeah.
I think we also know that punishment doesn't work. So just because we came through schools that use punishment doesn't mean that it's going to work. So we need to be looking at how we can teach children what they need, what they need to know.
Yeah, I'd love to get a bit of insight from you, Matt, around...
No, I totally agree with that. Communication and thinking about things broadly and systems and skill-based things, I think that's absolutely where it starts. I think kids with ADHD that I see, often they haven't got intent. They're actually trying to do the right thing, but they're so impulsive and so restless that it's very difficult for them. And kids with emotional regulation problems, often they have an idea about what they should do, but in the heat of the moment, that's just too hard for them.
Don't get it.
And it's kind of identifying when they're just starting to move up the, colours on the emotional regulation, zones of regulation stuff, and intervening as early as you can, and all those other sorts of things. But yeah, I kind of agree with everything that's been said. Sounds good.
Is it quite detrimental if, punitive ways are sort of what is pushed on for those children as well, or is it potentially something that can always sort of be like a repair, and you can always kind of alter and work with that child?
Yeah, things are, there's always going to be some issues, aren't there? And it's kind of how you manage that and what you learn from it. And hopefully you just work in a direction where that's less frequently happening in the future, heading in the right direction. But if it's heading in the wrong direction, sometimes getting some advice from somebody else is quite helpful, just another set of eyes, because you can get caught up in what's happening and form your own view, and no one's got all the answers.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I think there's also a large part of this is around educating the adults around the student, or the adults generally, just understanding that behaviour is communication, understanding that it's always contextual, those sorts of things, and the fact that what they do can have an impact on that behaviour as well. So they might impact it positively or negatively, which might increase the behaviour or decrease the behaviour. So it's not just about what happens with the child, it's actually about everybody that's around that child.